Welcome back to my response to this video about proof of Allah. I haven't heard much in the way of proof yet, but it's gonna happen this time. I know it. 20 minutes from now I'll be a convert. Come on, lady, I believe in you.
And the Quran tells us, and I've talked about this in another video, that we have something called fitrat Allah, or the natural inclination to believe in God. And being from an anthropological background, this is so clear from studying so many different ancient civilizations up till the modern day.
Yes and no. I would say what humans really tend to do is look for intention in things. This is why, along with things like gods, which are intention behind major events like earthquakes and lightning strikes and the existence of the world, you also get smaller ones like something falling over in the house being attributed to a ghost, or things that happen in nature being attributed to angry spirits of rocks and trees, right? People really do have a strong tendency to assume intention, not only from other people or other animals, but also inanimate objects. When something happens, they say, well, what was the reason for this? Was someone trying to tell me something? They ask, what's the reason for life? What's the purpose of my life? People have this overwhelming sensation of themselves doing things intentionally, and they live in a world full of animals, which to some extent or other do things intentionally as well, and so we're very much focused on thinking in these terms. And yes, one consequence of this, or at least partially a consequence of this, is that belief in gods is very, very common. Gods are sort of the ultimate version of assigning intention to everything. It's basically the intention of the universe itself, or parts of the universe, the sky, the ocean, volcanoes. It's an interesting thing about the human mind, for sure, but I don't see what that has to do with the truth or falsehood of these beliefs. And more importantly, I don't see what that has to do with the truth or falsehood of your religion. The tendencies of humans to believe certain things and the instinctive way that we process the world around us tells us a lot about us, but not much about anything else.
We incline towards God. Why? Because we were built that way, and the Quran verifies this, right?
She cuts herself off in the middle of a word. That's not me. But okay, so I can roughly speaking agree with you that people do tend to believe in gods, particularly if we acknowledge all the other misattributions of intention like spirits and ghosts and aliens and various cryptids and, all these kind of things that people see as these intentional actors in the world around them that probably aren't really there. What I can't agree with you on, because you haven't given me any reason to, is that the reason for this is that we were intentionally built by a god that you believe in to operate in this way. I'm not saying that can't be an explanation, I'm just saying that you asserting it because you feel like it doesn't really convince me. You seem to be doing exactly what I was saying, which is you see something that you don't quite understand, you can't explain immediately, and instead of honestly asking why that is and trying to figure out what it is about humanity that makes us work in this way, you just jump to assigning intention. That's what I'm talking about. This is a really common thing that people do, and it's really frustrating. Now again, I'm not saying that can't be the explanation, but if it is, you're going to have to do a lot better than just pointing to someone else asserting it without evidence in a book. Now, at some point, of course, when you're dealing with science, the information that you're dealing with is probably going to come out of a book or a paper or what have you. But what you're going to find if you read these things is that there's a very different way of approaching them from what Muhammad had. Muhammad just says shit. He just says, this is the way things are, and it's this way because I say so, or because God says so. Now, you better start believing it, or things are going to get real bad for you. There's no attempt to make a compelling case. There's no attempt to make an argument. There's no attempt to present evidence. There was no process going on behind the scenes before it was ever written that was the actual attempt to gather evidence, to do an experiment or anything of the sort. It's just an assertion, unsupported by anything. I know the already converted find this really compelling, but the rest of us don't, because as the basis for an explanation of a phenomenon, it's extremely poor.
And Avicenna, who was one of the greatest Islamic philosophers of all time, actually ran with the idea that is found in verse 52:35 to 36 in the Quran, and it says, were they created without any agent? Were they the creators? Did they create the heavens and the earth? No, they do not have faith.
Okay, your translation's a bit different, but I'll just go with what's on the screen. So, were they created by nothing? No. Or were they the creators of themselves? No. Did they create the heavens and the earth? No. And, point being, science accepted this challenge a long time ago to explain the origins of things. And look at what the scientists have done. They didn't just leap to a conclusion. They didn't just say, therefore God, or therefore anything else. Is junk. It goes in the garbage. You don't accomplish anything, including finding the truth, if you spend all day just shrugging. By the way, a little earlier you snuck some text on the screen there saying anything created needs a creator. Yeah, I agree, because that's definitionally true, tautologically true really, and thus devoid of meaning. But of course then the question is, how do you determine that something is in fact created? Your assumption that our existence and the existence of our universe is due to the intentional act of some being is baked into that statement. You're begging the question, you're assuming the conclusion in the premise. Let me rephrase the argument to show you the problem. Anything created by someone is created by someone. The universe was created by someone. Therefore, the universe was created by someone. The argument doesn't lead to the conclusion because the conclusion is in the premises of the argument. There's no conclusion to lead to. You've already assumed it's true. It might be different if by created you didn't necessarily mean intentionally created, right? Like created through unthinking processes of natural selection, created through unthinking geological processes. But that's not what you mean. You've told me that's not what you mean by saying that anything created needs a creator. You're talking about only intentional creation by someone. That's why you think this argument leads to God. The word created as you're using it means created by someone, which assumes the existence of the someone. You're assuming the conclusion in the premise. To put it non-fallaciously, you would say anything that exists needs a creator. We exist, therefore we had a creator, except of course that premise, put that way, wouldn't sound nearly as nice to your audience, would it? Because it doesn't make any sense. And that's what I hear every time people say this kind of thing to me. Anything that exists needs a creator. Really? Why? Prove it. You don't just get to start there as though that statement is true by default. That statement would be the conclusion of a whole lot of reasoning before it, of which you've done none.
These verses tell us blatantly and challenge us to think outside of what we believe is humanly possible.
So these verses tell you to think outside of what you believe is humanly possible, and then instead of realizing that the universe might be a strange thing that doesn't quite match your human level expectations from life on Earth, that its origin, if there was even such a thing, might be beyond what you're capable of understanding from reading the Quran, that maybe its existence has nothing to do with petty human things like intention and creation, but it's a whole lot bigger and weirder and more confusing and more completely outside the realm of anything humans have ever experienced. You reject that and you say, no, I have trouble imagining that. It must have been some guy made it. I'm only human. I have trouble imagining other possibilities outside my normal day-to-day, so fuck it. Superman wanted a thing, so he made a thing, and then there was the thing. But think outside the box, guys. Ridiculous. But anyway, the text. Even science tells us matter cannot be created or destroyed. The law of conservation of matter. This is what we observe all around us. Matter not being created or destroyed, you mean? Something created needs a creator. Okay, well, you just said science tells us matter can't be created, so I guess that's not something created. So problem solved. Must have always been there, right? Nothing to explain now. Toss the God thing in the garbage. Seriously, did you even reread this before you put it up?
We've seen over so many centuries that science evolves because our understanding continues to evolve.
Yep, that's the amazing power of it. It's not just someone said something, now shut up and don't ask questions, or you'll risk burning in hell. It's ask questions. If someone says something, interrogate them. If someone's wrong, their idea goes away. The idea of science is to not be about authority and pride and assertion and arrogance, because it's about the truth, reality, humility. Now, obviously, it doesn't always work out that way. Humans are humans. We have our foibles. But on a long enough time scale, it works pretty well. And that's why all those things you were talking about with the animal senses, carbon dioxide, echolocation, infrasonic sound, infrared, ultraviolet light, electromagnetic fields, and so on, weren't discovered by religion. Religious people, some of them perhaps, but using the scientific method, not religion.
What doesn't change is what's within the pages of the Quran.
Yes, exactly. And that's why every interesting discovery of the past 1,000 years has come from science and not the Quran. This is not a point in your favor. This is not a reason to believe what the Quran says. This is a reason to treat it with suspicion and put it on the same level as every other holy book as a historically interesting artifact, not a source of truth. And of course, really, the changing in and of itself is secondary to the point. Whether the claims themselves change doesn't solve the problem. What would solve the problem is if the way of arguing changed. If it put things forth through arguments that are more convincing than just believe me or go to hell.
And if you really study it and you get the best translation you can for it, because Arabic has 12 million words, okay, to our, I forget what the English language is, but it's so small compared. to all of the nuanced words that are available in Arabic.
Okay, now what she just said is a pretty small point, pretty insignificant to the video. Basically, you have to look for a good translation of the Quran because the Quran is such a wonderfully nuanced language with so many more words than the English language. And so you really have to be careful that you're getting the full meaning when you read a translation. I think that's basically what she's trying to say. And I agree, translation from any language to any language is hard. There will be meaning lost. And considering the distance between Arabic and English, that's probably more of a problem than from, for example, German to English. That basic idea that you'll lose something in translation, that you should look for a good translation, I agree with, and it's not super controversial. But what got me more interested than I should have been was the claim that Arabic has 12 million words and English only has 600,000, and this picture showing that. Even though it really doesn't matter, like a language is not defined by the quantity of words it has, that's not what defines the quality or the nuance or the usefulness of a language. Even despite that, I was really curious where this was actually coming from because something here just didn't pass the sniff test. And I thought there might be something interesting at the bottom of it. So this claim that Arabic has 12,300,000 words is parroted all over the place on the internet. It's kind of a meme, it seems, but nobody ever actually talks about how that number was arrived at. But I'll tell you. Now, part of the key to this puzzle is look at the text under the number. 12,300,000 is the number of Arabic language words without repeating. Well, of course, without repeating, if you're going to count words, why would you repeat the same words in your count? Well, the answer to why they put in this strange phrasing is because this isn't about words. This is about possible root letter combinations. And what they're talking about is not repeating letters. Now, the Arabic language has 28 letters, and they're all consonants. And actual words are constructed by adding to groups of consonants. And these consonant groups are called roots. And a root implies kind of a general meaning. So the root KTB is something to do with writing. And then you would add sounds to that to create actual words. So I'm not going to get any of these pronunciations right, fair warning, but kataba, he wrote, katabu, they wrote, katib, writer, kutub, books, maktub, letter, miktab, typewriter. Don't hate me if I screwed up those pronunciations, I don't speak Arabic. But anyway, you can see how one root word would be the basis of a lot of different words. And whoever came up with this number, for some reason, ignored that completely. If they were looking for a big number, that would have helped them, because it would have led to a whole lot bigger number than they ended up with. But maybe that wasn't the goal of whoever did this originally, I don't know. What this number is not the count of words. What this number is the count of possible roots, assuming that roots are only between 2 and 5 letters and no letters repeat. Whether these are actually used within real words doesn't matter. So the calculation is the sum of 28 times 27, that's for 2-letter roots, plus 28 times 27 times 26, that's for 3-letter roots, plus 28 times 27 times 26 times 25 for 4-letter roots, plus 28 times 27 times 26 times 25 times 24 for 5-letter roots, which totals to 12,305,412. Of course, as I say, this is kind of a strange thing to do because this is only roots, not actual words, and if you were to make words out of every single one of these possible roots, you would have many times this number of words. But of course, most possible roots are not used in any words whatsoever, any more than any random combination of letters counts as a real English word, or even a word fragment. So the number of words really would not be this high, in terms of actual functional language that anyone could understand. But if people's goal was to big up Arabic by saying how big of a language it is compared to all the other languages, some pointless linguistic dick measuring, you'd think they wouldn't just stop at possible roots. You'd think they'd go further than this and say, here's the number of possible words, and multiply this 12 million number by, like, I don't know, 50? Whatever, though, it's their argument. Either way, though, you can understand from this why this is absolutely meaningless drivel, and yet it's seemingly repeated ad nauseum as an internet meme by idiots wanting to make their language sound super awesome, which I really don't understand. What the hell kind of a measure is word count for the quality or nuance or usefulness of a language? If you take a language with 1 billion words, and people on average only know 50,000 or something, is that somehow inherently superior to a language with 12,300,000 words, of which people on average know 50,000? Why? Are we seriously doing language against language as some kind of playground argument here? My language is bigger than your language. Oh yeah? Well, my language has every combination of every letter from every language that ever existed. And also, every word in my language has up to 1 billion letters. And also, new words can be made by putting together any number of other words. Like German, but much more better. And that sentence was actually just one word. See? So think how many words my language has. Oh yeah? Well, my language has infinity characters and also infinity letters in every single word, so I win. It's just juvenile. You know, what's especially funny here is that you did the dick measuring in the stupidest way you possibly could. A stupid way would be to just count the words in some dictionary, or maybe go to Wikipedia's list of dictionaries by number of words and see which one comes out on top. A stupider, but not quite as stupid way would be to total up every single word that's ever been used in Arabic, meaning every single word in classical Arabic, every single dialect of modern Arabic, every dialect that's ever existed, and then you pretend that somehow these are all words in Arabic, as if they're present in one unified, discrete language existing right now. That would undeniably be very stupid. But instead what you opted for was just multiplying all the letters together, which is truly mind-bogglingly dumb. Think about it. What if I did the same thing for English? Well, in English, we don't just start with root words a few letters long. We have words as long as pneumano-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, which has 45 letters. Now, we're going to pretend that's the maximum letter count of English words, even though it's not. There is no maximum. And we're not going to worry about repeating characters. Repeating characters happen all the time in English, so we have 26 letters in the alphabet, and we need to multiply that by itself 45 times, then 44 times, then 43 times, and so on down to 1 time for each possible word length between 1 and 45. And then we're going to take all those products and add them together. It's the same basic thing you'd do if you had a number with a possible length of 1, 2, or 3 digits in base 10. A 3-digit number has 10 times 10 times 10 possible values, a 2-digit number has 10 times 10, and a 1-digit number has 10 possible values. So a number of unknown length between 1 and 3 digits has 10 plus 10 times 10 plus 10 times 10 times 10 possible values. And similarly, a word that could have between 1 and 3 letters, a 3-letter word would have 26 times 26 times 26, a 2-letter word 26 times 26, and a 1-letter word 26. Make sense? Good. Pop on over to Wolfram Alpha, write my query in plain language because I haven't used Sigma since high school. Check that what comes back sort of kind of makes sense. So for n equals 1 up to n equals 45, we go 26 to the power of 46 minus n, so 46 minus 1 is 45, 46 minus 2 is 44, and so on, and add the results together. Makes sense to me. And the resulting number is so enormous I have to get Alpha to help me. 4.9 times 10 to the 63, which is 4.9 vigintillion, which is so big you've probably never heard of it. We Englishes are kind of underground and like cool like that. Wow, 4.9 vigintillion? Look how amazing and superior a language English is. Arabic sucks. That's what you're doing. It's dumb.
So plainly put, you can deny gravity's existence and try to jump off your roof and see how that works out for you. Just like you can deny that God exists and roll the dice and die and see what happens.
Real nice, yeah.
But the better way is to use your wisdom and look at the world around you and sift through the sources that we have. It might take you a while to come to the conclusion.
I can't hear you. Can you turn that goddamn music down, you kids these days?
There is a lot of effort behind it. But God exists just as surely as gravity does.
Okay, based on what? You haven't got to that yet. You just said gravity exists and you can't see it, something God. What is it? The book? It's the book, right? That's why it's as sure as gravity, because book. That's what it is, isn't it? That's the answer. Prove me wrong.
And just because you can't see with your eyes or hear with your ears, there is something internal that you can tune into God with.
The spleen.
You just have to practice. You just have to use it.
Yeah, you just have to really want to believe the thing and keep trying to emotionally manipulate yourself until you do. I know. I got it. I don't know if it's obvious, but my patience is kind of running thin here. Good thing we're close to the end.
I sincerely hope that you find what you're looking for and that perhaps something made sense in this video.
Afraid not.
Always wishing you what is better. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, goodbye. So, I guess I was wrong. She didn't convert me. I'm just gonna have to keep living my miserable, depressing, drug-addled, sex-crazed atheist lifestyle. I can live with that. Thanks for watching. Please, before you go, give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. Huge thanks to all of my supporters on every platform. Email list people, get early access, list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.